Come on up, sit. So Eoin is works in Integrity 360. They're a cybersecurity firm, and he has over 20 years working in the industry. So AI has positives, but it might have some negatives as well. And then I also would like to invite Lorcan Malone. Where's Lorcan? There, Lorcan. Come on up, as they say. Price is right. There you go. And Lorcan, he is the head of the Analytics Institute. He's been through over 10 years of growth and development at that institute, and has a huge data community with many of the cutting edge global companies as part of that. And he is in contact with so many variety of companies and people within those companies, and they are talking about AI. So I thought from a general business perspective, it would be great to have Lorcan here to give us that kind of general overview. So before, maybe give them a round of applause. So before I go to the panel, we'll make this a bit more interactive. Hands up who has used AI. Okay. Hands up who's used it for work. Hands up who found it good. Okay, so there's less and less hands at each question, right? Okay. So maybe have that in mind, that there's a lot of people who've used it, not everybody, and they've used it for work, but not everybody's found it great, but a lot of people have found it good. I've also used it, and I've had more positive than negative experience as well. But just to say, I think it's something that is not only, as I said, when I did the search of what are the top issues in IT to talk about, AI was number one, and data and innovation, data governance was number 5 and 6. But as Bronagh said, the models in AI are working off data ultimately, and so that they're really important. Anyway, that's me. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll go to it. The best part of this would be your involvement in this part of the program, and so I really do encourage you to shout out and ask a question. We have experts here that you may not get a chance to talk to like this again, so use that time well. Okay, so thanks very much everybody for agreeing to come along. The same question that I asked the audience, have you all used AI?
God, no. Security professional.
Not much, to be honest. Not on a personal basis. I was struck by, you asked about people using it for work. We're recruiting at the moment, and I think it must be a generational thing. But loads of the CVs that we got all looked very, very similar. And there were ChatGPT, obviously, generated CVs. And I challenged a couple of people who I interviewed for the roles that I said, first of all, the CV looked very generic, but also we asked them to do a presentation, and lo and behold, the same images, the same language, again, So I challenged them, and honestly, those kind of under 30 had no bother admitting that they were using, ChatGPT, I'm thinking, but we're trying to test your skills here, but they didn't see it. Anyone over 30, oh no. But so there's a generational thing as well as everything else. But that's an example of where I think, we have to be careful about the use of AI in terms of quality. It might produce the goods very quickly and efficiently, but not necessarily to a high quality level.
Okay.
I've definitely used AI.
Thought you might.
Yeah. I'm back in the day when it wasn't called AI. It used to be called data mining, then it was data science, then it's AI. We all remember that. So
yeah.
I do think it's an important point, though. There was a Microsoft survey last year that denoted 27% of shadow AI within organizations. And I think that's really important to ponder on. What that means is that organizations are using ChatGPT, but is it in an enterprise setting? So from a security perspective, that's really important from your data privacy. Putting sensitive information into certainly sensitive business information as well, and data, really personal information shouldn't really go into a non-enterprise version. So there's considerations to be taken from a security perspective. But what that also does mean that there are AI use cases out there that are not being governed and managed by a business. And when you're looking to understand what people want to use AI for, you're missing that. And the second of which is in the EU AI Act, you have to denote AI categorizations, high risk, medium risk, low risk. And again, if you're missing a category of AI that you can't govern, it's important to manage that. So I think that's something that organizations need to do around creating policies and guidelines and helping their staff understand what you can use AI for, what you can't, how you should use it, what technology you should use,
Yeah.
and manage it that way.
Okay. Well, you've sort of hit on a sort of a weakness or a danger around AI, so we might as well go to our security expert, Eoin, and ask about. I mean, you know, in terms of AI and cybersecurity, I mean, you know, the criminal mind doesn't worry about legislation, doesn't worry about all that stuff. Have you seen in your field the use of AI as an attack, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's more as a defense, really, in cybersecurity.
Defense, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's for me, it's not about whether we should embrace AI. We already are embracing it, and within cybersecurity, it's used quite extensively. There was a man that said to me recently enough that, you know, it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the person using AI that's going to take your job. So I thought it was an interesting enough analogy. But yeah, within there's many use cases and ways that AI can be developed, and within cybersecurity, it's no different. You know, within threat detection, let's say, for example, it's extensively used for. We extensively use AI, so we pull signal data from a whole, you know, could be up to tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands of points, data points on enterprise networks. So it could be from endpoints, from the network, from cloud and SaaS environments, from IT, OT, IoT, you name it. Like, and we pull threat intelligence. There's a lot of big data going on in here. We pull threat intelligence in. You know, it could be internal information about internal systems as well. Anything that can give that contextual awareness or analysis to what we're doing. And then we apply, depending on the underlying system, so you can have security technologies, let's say on your endpoint, you could have your EDRs, your EPPs, let's say, network detection response. There's a whole lot of detection response technologies out there. So it's leveraging the AI capabilities and the ML that's built into those, and with big data that you're collecting, to be able to then use that to detect and respond to threats. So there's a whole host of different capabilities built into these technologies, whether it's anomaly detection, user and entity behavioral analytics, deep learning. Bronagh pointed out a lot of them earlier on. So that's one way in cybersecurity, but it's a very important use case for us. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hit this question. We're going to leave it later, but you brought it up, so I'm going to hit it now. What's the difference between AI and machine learning?
They're not mutually exclusive. It's an umbrella term. So machine learning is a form of AI. That'd be my.
Yeah, and the machine, I guess, will learn as it goes from the data. So I think a really good example is around the chess example, when the computer's playing the person, and then it's continued to learn and adapt and beating the person as well from history. So it's learning as it goes.
Okay, so machine learning is a subset of AI, is what we're saying? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And so I know you said generative AI. What other types of AI are we looking at now? Or is there more?
So one to talk about maybe would be agentic AI, and a good example of that might be, I'm going to say, if you're going to look to book a holiday in the future, and I've done this myself, actually asked ChatGPT, can you please find me a holiday for a family of 4 on this date, to this date, with this kind of criteria. So, you know, it's creating all of that information all in one and coming up with the context, and it's bringing all the data sources together. So whether that's certain website information, pricing information, flight information. So that's the latest technology that we'll see continue to be more effectively used going forward.
Okay. Is it getting faster?
Yes, I think it definitely is. But I guess there's considerations. So as I mentioned as well, computational power is really important. Energy to feed that is really important. And I guess water consumption to feed, you know, data centers behind that. So there's certainly things to be addressed.
Okay. You mentioned in your presentation, Bronagh, that you'd need to identify, the best way, one of the ways of doing this would be to identify a project, right? So what are the criteria that a project would need to warrant AI? If like, is there a scale element here? Is there, you know, what do we need to think about there?
Really the key is understanding what questions or insight do you need to address questions in your business strategy. So depending on what your KPIs are, what insight do you need to advance those? And then backwards from that, what analytics do you need to deliver the insights, and what data do you need to deliver the analytics to deliver the insights? But you can start small, and you can start with one small project, and organizations do, and that's actually the best way to start. So one is about really having the business person there to give you the use case, and then there are technologies, low cost technologies that you can start to use to get started, and some data would be useful.
So in your experience, what is small? If you look, is it 1 million records? 10 to,
Yeah,
what is
I
it?
think it depends really, and that's not necessarily a blocker. And actually, certainly in two previous roles to the one I was in, we created an incubation team where we did some analysis within a 2-week period to show proof of value and proof of concept. And then what you find is you'll find the insights, and that'll move to a 4-week project and a 3-week project. So you take it slowly in an incremental fashion, using agile approaches.
Thanks, Bronagh. So taking the same question, Lorcan, if you think about, and from your experience in your own experience and with various companies you're talking about, how are they approaching AI, or what pace are they going at?
They're going at a slow-ish pace.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say that. So we've a membership organisation of companies that work with data. We'd have banks, insurance companies, SMEs, the whole gamut. We have an event where we get our companies to showcase projects and what they're working on at the moment. We had that last week in the Aviva with about 300 people there. And what was interesting is we did the same event a year ago, and we say the 15 companies that were presenting, 3 or 4 of them were presenting AI projects, and mostly people were presenting data projects, more traditional analytics projects. Recently, our recent event, nearly everybody was doing AI projects. So within a year, it has started to become a bit ubiquitous. Now, I wouldn't say a lot of those projects are deep, as in I think a lot of the projects that we're seeing companies working on are toe in the water exercises, learning things, experimenting with AI, seeing what value can be created. There are some organizations that would be a bit more sophisticated and are investing heavily and creating amazing results. But I'd say most organizations, most of your organizations are probably at the stage of saying, okay, what can we do with this? And it's coming probably from the top down, where the board is saying, we have to be doing something with this AI. What are we doing? I have a high-tech piece of paper here, which I just wanted, just because I was thinking about this question, and just a few of the companies and what they're doing from last week to give you a kind of sense of what people are doing with AI. So Bank of Ireland, we're talking about having a digital assistant to help you with your spending as you were banking on a day-to-day basis. So it would prompt you with different things you could do in terms of saving your money. Musgrave are using it to with basket data from people going into the supermarkets and shops and being able to predict what they're going to buy based on AI. And so therefore, depending on the different types of shops they have different products. So in the more wealthy areas, they might have the bottles of expensive red wine, and they'd have the cans of cider from where I'm from, There's a company called North, I'm sure you know North, who are using it to, they're a payments organization, and they're using AI to block payment transactions in real time where there's suspicious activity. A company called Cognizant are using it for regulatory reporting in the pharma industry, which is huge. There's a great organization called Pubble, a government organization, is using AI to identify children at risk in deprived areas and targeting appropriate resources to those children. So a very big, wide range of stuff, but it's getting from the very superficial level to getting a little bit deeper as we go on. And I'm excited about what the future will hold, but we're not there yet.
Okay. I'm going to come to the audience now in 1 second. I'm going to have one more question. So have your questions ready. So Eoin, if you think about those examples, can maybe how can you or what recommendations would you make to help a company on its journey to AI to make sure it does it securely in a cyber sense?
Well, I think that the Bank of Ireland digital assistant one and helping you how to spend your money, I think my wife probably have something to say about that. I suppose we're continuously helping customers with their AI development, and even in a lot of what we do is manage services around secure threat and threat detection and response. So there's that element in using machine learning and what have you, but there's also I think Bronagh touched on it earlier on as well. It's the business processes and digitalizing them and leveraging AI for you know the mundane tedious tasks, sifting through so much false positives to get to the really good stuff in terms of detecting threats. You know, like some of the tools out there are incredible, like in terms of pen testing and red teaming. So you've got AI tools for that, for in terms of the threat detection code that we deploy, simulation, so AI simulation testing. So these are threat simulations. It's not real attackers as such. It's just AI that we use to make sure that what we're doing actually will detect when something fires. But and I suppose that's within SecOps, so there's a hell of a lot going on in there. But then I guess the majority of how we help customers really is around enabling them to leverage AI as opposed to how we use it ourselves. So and a lot of that comes down. It really comes back to the data and you know, understanding your data. You know, do you have sensitive? Are you trying to process sensitive data? Where is that data stored? How is it being used? Is there appropriate controls around it, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's it. That's the bulk, I'd say, of how we help customers.
Okay. Has anybody any questions so far? Yeah.
One question is, how does AI access and use the GeoDirectory, the data that's in the GeoDirectory? Is there an interface there? And then the second question is just about, you know, what kind of criminals are using AI to, for fraud, you know, who are going in and actually using AI to hack into all of our.
Okay, so I'll take the first one, I guess. So we don't use AI to help just create or generate GeoDirectory. It could be used by customers in their processes. I don't know of any. Maybe somebody here will hold up their hand and say we use it, but I don't know of any yet. But yeah, I mean, AI needs data training models. It's ideal. Okay, we have some global customers, and I would be. They haven't confirmed it, but I'd be fairly sure they are using it. Yeah, they embed them into their back end AI systems, and then they pull it out so you can get maps to work really quickly. Idea.
Sure. So you can put the GeoDirectory database into you know, as a source.
Yeah.
For some question.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it'll definitely work. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to design it, etc., and you'd want to link it to layers of information and stuff. But yeah, it will work.
It's kind of custom, really.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. Sorry,
I think it was in terms of attackers and how there are no limits in the same way as in industry. There's an infinite number of ways that it can be leveraged and deployed and used. So there isn't any one or two. I know that in our world, it's noise creation. It's a hell of a lot of noise in the last number of years to try and be able to sift through. So it's really about how we're using it to counteract the adversary. As much as understanding how they're using it themselves.
Yes, we're getting very specific emails that are fraud based. You know, where say, you know, they have accessed the institute, they have our names, they, you know, put together something that looks just like the institute, and they're saying, well, please put it, you know, update your data here, you know, so then the institute, that's the RAI was saying, please make sure that you don't answer that email.
Wow.
But it's clear that the AI is picking up on, you know, it's accessing the database or emails.
It could be, yeah, or
graphics and their topics, you know, so it doesn't look fake anymore.
We use digital risk protection technology. Some of this could be down to that data has already been lost, or it could be out there in the public ether and is being leveraged. Simulation or phishing is a huge problem in our industry, and trying to get ahead of that. Security awareness training is a huge part of what we do to kind of educate users and help them to understand the risks and you know, empower them to make the right decisions when needed.
Before I go, and yeah, over here. please.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch on the point that you made earlier, Lorcan, about your recruitment process on the under 30s and how they're all using AI, because it reminded me of a conversation that I had with my friend last week, and she's currently in university, and she said to me, I feel like I'm losing the ability to be able to read and write as I used to. So I was wondering, is there a way to sort of navigate this going forward when you are bringing young talent into the organization?
I don't know if we can get back to the read. I have a son who's 25. He couldn't read to save his life. He nearly wants me to send him a text instead of speaking to him now at this stage. So I certainly think there's a real shift. I even notice myself. You'd be surprised. I'm over 30, but I find my own reading ability. I'm an awful hypocrite, to be honest with you, because I'm doing a creative writing course at the moment, and I'm supposed to produce 1,500 words last night, and I hadn't time, so I used ChatGPT, and it was better than the stuff I'd written myself. So what I do think, very importantly, because Bronagh touched on it, democratization of AI. I think we have to be careful not to see AI as something that resides with the technology people in an organization, with the gurus or the nerds, but with everybody. So I think we are advocating as an organization very heavily is the idea that AI skills are AI literacy. And data literacy is hugely important moving forward. So we would be saying to organizations, invest, not heavily, but invest a little in training everybody in your organization, irrespective of their role or their age or anything else, that everybody in the organization should be sensitive to how data can be used and also how data can be exploited as well, both on the positive and negative. I think it's really important for organizations moving forward.
Okay. Question over here. Do we have a second mic? No, it's I'll hear. I'll come over here.
It's a little bit related to the previous question. So, Bronagh, you were saying in recruitment about 80% are already using AI, and then Lorcan was saying a lot of the CVs are written by ChatGPT. So I was wondering if there are some situations there already where we just have two AI systems essentially talking to each other because it's a generated CV and then the selection process is also an AI.
I think it's an interesting question as well. I guess one thing to say around decision making when it comes to recruitment or people, that's a high risk use case. And so there'll be very stringent rules around how you can manage that when it comes to making decisions on people. So there'll certainly always be a human in the loop and they'll have to abide by the regulations around that. So it's interesting actually, and I think that'll evolve over time where maybe say people are using their CVs for that, but I guess that's going to evolve and it's because it's new and it's there and people are looking to see if they can evolve it. But again, as literacy becomes much more prevalent, as Lorcan said, people will probably be much more careful around personal information, how you use it, what you're sharing, especially in an open forum. So I would agree wholeheartedly around literacy, upskilling and reskilling so that everybody's aware of what it means, and absolutely abiding by the EU AI Act when it comes to highly sensitive use cases.
Thank you. I feel like walking around the audience noting that. Anybody else a question? Over here.
I can do the mic on this side if you want.
Thank you. So you were mentioning about the use of data, but have you seen plenty for organizations going back one step before using AI in terms of, let's have a look at what the data quality that we have before we use it for any of the AI initiatives, because it seems that sometimes they just want to rush into delivering a product and giving a solution when the reality is that the data is not quite there yet. And if they have what kind of efforts or what kind of strategies have they used to clear that?
Yeah, I'd certainly say what's vital is you have your data clean and correct in the first place, because you're now relying on it even more heavily to actually deliver value to your customers, whatever. So I think there's nothing worse than, and it grates, doesn't it, when somebody's trying to personalize something and it doesn't match, dear Mrs. Malone, me getting an email like, it's the worst thing that can happen, So I haven't heard of people using AI in order to clean up their data, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, Bronagh?
I think there are use cases. I think data governance and data quality is really important, and it's a key step in any analytics and AI project. And it's always part of the process, and certainly it's become people are much more aware of it, because one of the interesting conversations I have in C-suite is how does data governance and data quality impact your return on investment, and we actually have to have that conversation about the ROI of data governance and data quality initiatives, because they're significant. So 100% data quality is really important, and always has been. Probably we're just talking maybe at the moment those data management practices now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to be cheeky and ask 2 questions, if that's okay.
Go, we can ask 3.
The first one's just around AI and the big use cases recently, obviously Gen AI and large language models. I'm just wondering, are you seeing incidents of AI impacting decision making, or getting close to either on par or better than human decision making? And then the second question is just around the security and social engineering, deep fakes, all that is a big threat, targeting the back end IT who might be susceptible to hearing a voice on a phone and thinking it's their boss, ask them to override a protocol, seeing a video that they don't realize is a deep fake, has been generated by AI. So I'm just wondering, are you seeing those sort of use cases within cybersecurity incidents? And then what's the defense mechanism against those, I suppose?
So I just going to contribute to that question. I don't know if anybody's seen the Dove commercials. Okay, so Dove has these commercials where what they did was, this is a deep fake thing, right? What they did was they brought in mother and daughters, okay, and the daughters were teenagers, and they wanted to show the moms what the daughters could be looking at on their phones. And what they did was they interviewed the moms about what would you say about diet and how you look, and they had all very similar answers. Eat well, sleep, take care of yourself, blah blah blah. And then they brought them in and they sat them down with their daughter, and they showed them the mom telling the daughter how to be bulimic, how to be anorexic, how to fool people, right? And it looked and sounded exactly like the mom, right? And then that was showing, it was an educational piece, but very scary to see it, right? So Dove do a lot of this kind of stuff. So yes, it can. So there is a consideration. No, this isn't just AI, but it can be dangerous, right? It can be very dangerous. So we're just taking away the answer from the panel, but there is a problem like that can, deep fakes can happen, like, and they can be very destructive.
Yeah, it's just how do we combat that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because it's the human is the weakness a lot in cybersecurity system and defense. A lot of time, like you talked about phishing, and it's that human element where we're making decisions, and if we can't really believe what we see or what we hear, that's a big weakness there.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting one, and I think somebody used the word asymmetry or asymmetric earlier on and in security, it's similar in that the attackers or the adversaries are using AI differently to how we're using it, and trying to counter that is, there are tools out there, but for specific, for example, deep fakes, there are capabilities for locking that down. But I think that we're behind the curve, if I'm being honest, and it's probably going to take a little bit more time before we get to where we need to get to with some of the controls around that technology. Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you to take this, but I'm going to ask you to also bring in, if you don't mind, sort of regulation in the AI. I think this is a good segue into that as well, because I'm sure it touches on that.
Just on that last point as well, I think it was reported this week that the Arctis is creating a new committee around just that question. So I think Ireland is definitely taking that seriously, as is the the rest of the world as well. And I know in the AI Council, that's an area that we focused on around copyright and IP, and that'll continue from, I suppose, a legal perspective, you know, how to best manage that as well. In terms of the regulation piece, so the EU AI Act has come into force, and we've already hit the data literacy milestone, again, linking into Lorcan's comment around literacy, and there should be a certain level of literacy within each organisation. And then there'll be certain milestones that come up over the next months and years as well. But the key premise is that AI use cases will be categorised into various categories: high risk, medium risk, low risk, etc. And then there'll be a set of principles and outlines about how you should deal with each of those set of use cases, and how you manage it within your organisations. Really key to create guidelines for your business, and also align with how ethically that AI should be utilised in your business to align with your business principles. And we see organisations creating that alignment around how they want to show up for their customer as well.
Any more questions before I? Yeah, 2 more questions over here.
Hi, I wanted to ask a kind of a recommendation. Like, a lot of companies are still on-prem for their servers or data whatsoever. So what would you recommend here, that they should be still on-prem and not accept the AI? And like, since the AI is kind of vulnerable right now, or do accept it later, or they should start accepting it and try to mitigate as the time passes by?
Yeah, I think I can. It depends. And again, it all comes back to the data, doesn't it? You know, if you're using non-sensitive public data, that you know, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're using sensitive data, then you know, you might think about bringing those models on-prem and doing all your AI type stuff on-prem. Or maybe you could send the non-sensitive stuff to cloud instances. So it really depends on the data. What are you actually using? Is that sensitive data? Can that be sent out to outside of your control, to third parties or not? And then you work from there, you know, depending on what controls you're going to build around that.
Okay.
And like a kind of a hybrid solution would be the best part?
Well, no, it depends. So if it's all non-sensitive, then you free reign. If it's sensitive, then you have choices. You can split the sensitive and non-sensitive on-prem and have your on-premise models for the sensitive data, and then you could send the rest of your data out and use a hybrid model, or else, you know. So it depends really on the data, I think, anyway.
Yeah, and I think very much manage the risk, identify the risk for your organisation, and then mitigate against it. And there's certainly risk registers and all that, good governance around it. But certainly, consideration of moving to the cloud is definitely worldwide. Yeah, managing.
Another thing that I notice with our customers is that they don't always know whether it's sensitive or not, and that can be the biggest problem. Is that, can we send this data to the cloud? Can we send it outside of our control? And sometimes we don't know the answer to that. So I think that you need to get to the bottom of that issue, number one. You know, is there data classification in place in your organization? You know, are you labeling data? Can you you know, do you have visibility into data movement, either within your organization or going externally? And you know, if it is sensitive, do we need to put controls in place or not? So it all kind of stems from that, really.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I think there's a question just here. Just here.
Eoin has half answered my question there in relation to who has access to the data and where it can go, and, you know, classification of it, etc. But I suppose from the perspective of what AI is in the background, that it's, you know, it's constantly doing machine learning. As an example, let's just say I work in the HR department and I'm running a report and I decide I'm going to use AI to do this fantastic report, and it shows up everyone's pay scales, what they're earning, etc. That's then on ChatGPT or Copilot, more likely if you're a company, and then somebody else goes in to run something, and they kind of go, oh, and XYZ, something about pay scales. Is that data then, because it's gone out onto Copilot, is it then automatically
It should never
available,
go. It should never go out to Copilot in the first place. you should have your model. You know, if you're dealing with that sensitive data, it should be processed internally within the four walls. So once it leaves your organization, once it gets out into the public ether, you've no control.
So just
over
because
how
you're
that's-
using Copilot, that could be Copilot internally and it can't go out.
Exactly,
But,
yeah.
but somebody else in that organization, they're still in the organization.
Yeah.
So someone in HR runs the report, and then someone in marketing goes to do something.
But they're trying to upload that data to ChatGPT, let's say.
Oh, no, it's Copilot and you
Or
have it internally.
Copilot, yeah.
So, but if I'm in the organisation and you're in the organisation
Yeah.
and we're both in different departments, I have access to pay scales, you don't.
Yeah.
But then I've used Copilot to run a report. If Copilot is machine learning, it's then it's learning. Does it not have that data then, or
Well,
is that to do with classification?
The whole
and open
premise
access?
of information security is maintaining the confidentiality of the data, the integrity of the data, and the availability. So the confidentiality piece is kind of what you're touching on there. And I think, again, I know it's kind of repeating what I was saying earlier on, but it does come down to labeling or classifying that data correctly so that you can apply policies on, you know, even from who can access the data, regardless of, you know, where that data is surfaced.
Okay. And that's a tool, like, as against me manually having to sit down and go through every piece of data I have and saying that's
Yeah, there's lots of tools in case, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you guys in a minute again. So I just have another question. I just want to maybe add a little bit to the discussion. So we mentioned in your presentation business models for AI, and companies looking at their business model with AI, and you also talked about opportunities that that are going to now open up new markets, new ways, new opportunities. Have you any examples or any thoughts about what those business models would be, what those opportunities, how big they are, that kind of thing?
It differs by organisation and what the use cases are. And I think one of the most obvious ones that people are gravitating towards is automation of routine tasks.
Okay.
So, for example, maybe in finance function where Excel might be used a lot, or various other organisations, automating those tasks, and that frees up people's time to do more value-add activities. So again, it's very dependent on the business, their use cases, how they're structured. But certainly you see in the news, examples where people have utilised it to increase efficiencies, free up time, people can do additional elements across the business.
Okay. Lorcan, would you see anything else?
Yeah, I would agree with Bro. From what I've seen so far, it's mainly the business opportunities are in efficiencies and cost savings. Example would be, again, from a couple of weeks ago, Gas Networks Ireland, who have a legacy network underground of gas pipes going back, God knows, 100 years, and they're trying to look at where the houses fit on this network, and they've no information. So how are they going to do it? And they've used AI to predictively work out where a particular node sits on the network.
Okay.
And so they were doing that, just to give you an idea of the efficiency. They had a bank of people making phone calls and people going out and surveying the ground or whatever, and they were doing about 300 node points a week using a huge bunch of people. They managed to develop some sort of AI tool to do this job instead, and they got 300,000, I think it was 300,000 done in a month.
Wow.
So it's just a massive efficiency and cost saving. So far it's that. I mean, I assume eventually we'll get organizations creating products to sell using AI and whatever, and I'm sure there are examples out there, but I have seen mostly it's kind of those efficiencies.
Internal stuff.
Big, heavy jobs that are very clunky and paper-based still, or lots of procedures where you can actually just automate them.
Okay. Taking that growth piece, and I think, is there any sectors that have been first on to exploit the AI train?
I think there are sectors that are already using heavily. Pharma, I started out in pharma. Telcos, insurance, banking. I think there's a various right across the board, really. And we're seeing, funny, Lorcan and I were talking about earlier, an additional influx of AI first ventures and AI first companies that are coming to the fore in Ireland, and will continue to do so as well. So it's across industry, but certainly, you know, those types would have been maybe heavy users. You know.
Already.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're coming towards the end. So is there any more questions from the floor? Yeah. Sorry. You have it here. I know. Yeah, there we are.
Thanks very much. This is maybe more of a global, long-term kind of question. With all these kind of acts being introduced, do you see maybe some countries advancing a lot faster than, say, like maybe China advancing faster than somewhere like in Ireland? And is there going to be a big kind of disparity in how technology advanced one country be compared to, say, Ireland, where in the past, like, we're kind of relatively level playing field?
I think there's varying levels across countries. I mean, we see the news from the US, from China, France is, you know, significantly advanced. So everyone is, I think, on this journey. There's a new AI strategy for the UK. We have our strategy refresh in November. So I think everybody is making advancements in this space. And there's probably a little bit of a difference, but the key is, I suppose, to be a global leader, and that's certainly the ambition for Ireland.
And I'd totally agree. I'd be very confident about Ireland's position. Frankly, I think we sit in an incredible community and an incredible hub. You know, European headquarters for all of these big tech companies, all of these big pharma, at the moment anyway. We'll see how Trump gets on, but we are in like when we bring people in from Silicon Valley to speak at our conference. We've an analytics and AI conference, October the 8th in the CCD. But anyway, with a couple of thousand people. But when we bring in speakers, international authors or US guys or from Silicon Valley, they're blown away by the community that we have here, by the expertise that we have, by the companies that we have. We did an event in New York 2 years ago. I was waiting to be amazed by all of these banks and insurance companies that we invited to this event, and it was actually Bank of Ireland's headquarters in Manhattan, and it felt like an event 2 years ago in comparison to us. We were ahead. The conversations we're having are more advanced than they're having in the States, which really surprised me. But I'd be very confident that we have like people like Bronagh and the council. So it's so important. We have a major opportunity here to steal a march, and I think we have the technology, the people, the capability to do it. We do need the government supports, and we do need we need a little bit of fair winds with Trump and stuff. But I think we have a great opportunity at the moment.
It's good to hear.
Okay.
Yeah, no, just I think the EU AI Act was mentioned earlier on, and I know that there's a lot of work around regulation going on at the moment. There's different regulation happening in China, different regulation happening in the States. So what is the discrepancy going to be? Who's going to be kind of held back more? I suppose it remains to be seen, but the way I look at it with my security hat on is that it's finding that balance of you know, securing the data and enabling businesses to leverage the powers of AI. So yeah.
Okay. Have we got one more question? No. No. Yeah, one more question. Very back.
It's worth just to go a little further on that's working. The question about regulation and how it's going to affect the use of AI. Like, I work in a highly regulated industry, so for us to actually use AI is going to be challenging. How do you see that moving forward?
My views, and I think others are similar, when you work in a highly regulated industry, it's already highly regulated. So this is another piece, and I think highly regulated industries are very well used to dealing with this space. So I see that as, and it's also important from an ethical perspective as well. So I know that talking to those in some of the similar industries as well, it doesn't necessarily need to slow down the benefit that you get from it. It just means that we're dealing with it in a responsible and ethical way. That's the right thing for our consumers as well. At least that would be my view.
Yeah, any of the regulations I've seen so far would be, you know, common sense, and as long as your business is ethical in general, none of these regulations are particularly onerous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing. Last chance. I have three more questions, then I'm stopping. So anybody else? Yeah, right there.
So yeah, if there's a scale, one end is completely trusting a human and the other end is completely trusting an AI. What's the trend in when it comes to customer services and sales and functions like that? What's the trend you see? Where do you think we are in that scale? Are consumers trusting AI more, and do you think we're completely more way?
What do I think? I think that organizations need to be transparent. So whenever you're dealing with an artificial intelligence chatbot, for example, the consumer needs to know that, and they can make the decision whether they interact with that or not. We already see AI capabilities out there today, and I'm sure a lot of us use those voice activated elements. So I suppose again, it's about understanding what's happening with your data, making sure that you're getting value from it, that it aligns with your own views ethically. But I think that's an area that we'll continue to focus on as we move forward, very much more around digital literacy, maybe not just about artificial intelligence. And I know we have a digital strategy in Ireland, and I'm sure that'll continue to evolve as well. So I think as a society, again, it's about helping people understand what the technologies are doing, what it's used for, how you can gain benefit. And the key value is return on value to the consumer. And I guess if it speeds up time, if it's ethical, if it's responsible, if you're very clear on your regulatory commitments and that's clear to your customers, that's really important.
And I think there's, just on sales and customer service, I think there might be a return to some of the more traditional values, like actually being able to speak to a person who, you know, makes the effort to listen to you and as a customer and to understand your requirements and stuff. So I think some organizations over automated too soon, and as a result actually lost competitive advantage. So I think in some instances, the return of the human in the loop is actually a good thing in terms of delivery of quality service. So I think you have to be careful to balance these things.
Okay.
So 5 is the number, to answer his question, 5.
42. No other questions? Any questions? Well, no other questions. Yeah, one question over here. Is it not working?
Just one question around LLMs in particular. I know there's privacy concerns around stuff like DeepSeek, and for example, Copilot was pushed out by Microsoft quite rapidly to market, whereas say Gemini was tested a bit more before pushing it out. Are there any LLMs in particular that you wouldn't recommend purely from a privacy or risk perspective?
I'm going to wonder if the security expert.
Yeah, is that similar to the gentleman's question here? Just capabilities around DeepSeek and controls that you can put in place, is it? Yeah, look, as I was saying, we're a little bit behind the curve, I think, if we're being honest, if we're being true within cybersecurity, but there are a lot of inroads being made in that space. Played around with some of that technology, but yeah, I think there's a way to go yet before we can really stand over it as a you know, trusted and a trusted way of securing some of that technology. Yeah.
And again, I think that's where things like the EU AI comes into force, because you have to be compliant with regulation, and your tools are involved in that as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna just ask the panel, the last panel, set your question. Don't look at me so scared. And they have a particular question. I asked them to set your question, so they did, right? So they were asking, generally speaking, in geographic information systems and in data management generally, have we seen AI having a big input there, or are we starting to see AI being actually involved in creating databases and managing databases, not just reporting on them?
Well, organizations their data engineers are using AI to create code.
Okay.
So that's speeding up the engineering capability where people are using it. And again, some of those AI first ventures that we see out there are using that significantly to create code and, you know, utilize the data engineering capability to the next level of detail.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't need coders.
We do actually. I think it's really important to have coders, and again, the human in the loop is really important. I mean, if I go back to, I don't even say how many years that I started working, but I was double coding. So I created a set of code. My colleague created a set of code. We did the exact same thing, and then we matched against each other to see, you know, was it correct, and did it provide independent outcomes? So you don't see that anymore, I think, as well. But you still need the human in the loop. You need the business experts as well, working within industries to make sure the outcomes are right and that it aligns with the output you'd expect. So I think there's coding and engineering is really important. It's just that it can help you get to the next stage faster.
Anybody else?
Just the amount of low code and no code stuff that's going out now is, I think, a good sign of democratization as well. That you know, that data and AI and stuff like that are not necessarily just part of an IT department over here. That's everybody.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I guess I think that the human element is always going to be there. I don't think that we're going to be able to take that away. There's so much trust you can put in the technology, but from my experience in cyber and within SecOps particularly, the analyst is God when it comes to you cannot replace our security analysts with AI.
Okay.
100%. You can, you know, put them together. It's very powerful, but yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much, Bronagh, Eoin, Lorcan. Thank you very much.